Amidu Ibrahim Tanko is Programs Director of Star Ghana, and Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa, as we talk about the fight against corruption in our public institutions, the role of citizens, the role of civil society. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
I believe you're doing very well.
Yeah. Very well.
Great. So, Franklin, for you, before we get into this broad topic of how we can ensure that we fight corruption in our public institutions, what do you make of the recent screening of the latest announced investigations concerning the GFA?
Well, I mean, good morning to your listeners. I like every ordinary Ghanaian, I expressed angst. I wasn't particularly mortified because I knew that, as I keep saying, that there's an elite consensus out there to do the rest of us in. Those of us who are not in politics or probably not big business people. And so there's this consensus which I believe strongly is in place to keep us perpetually out of coverage area, while people decide to do what they want to do, cut connects, get contracts, inflate them, keep the inflated costs, keep the inflated margins amongst themselves. So that's what I saw, and I felt pity for many of our kind who follow politicians, for lack of a better word, sheepishly, and do not realize that when a $178 million contract is entered into, which is an inflated one, it means that your village may not have a hospital bed, and that ambulances may not be there. And if you have only 54 ambulances in the country, that's genocidal, right? If you think that a bed costs relatively $100 to fix in a hospital, we have just 15,000 beds for nearly 30 million people, and someone can hand over $178 million. That's 1.78 million beds that could have been done. So when I saw the Nyantechi video, I wasn't particularly shocked. It was just trying to cream up $50 million.
Yeah.
But that's nothing. If you look at
nothing.
If you look compared with the bigger scandals we've had in the past, when people have walked through the corridors of power and then made cool $35 million for being financial engineers. And today the whole thing is growing. In fact, we've grown from a contract republic to now a cartel republic. And these are the things we are trying to see. It's no different from drugs that other countries are going through. And that is the real worry, which is why we think that interventions like what Star is doing, and especially working in the media and other civil society actors across the country, is very useful, because we'll wake up one day and we'll have no country. We need to stop it.
We need to stop it. We'll get to the Star Ghana bit, but since you talked about 178 million, it just drew my attention to Kelny GVG. Some people have gone to.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, some people have gone to court now. Something you support?
Oh, exceedingly. In fact, we are even trying to add another court case, public financial management, the abuse of it. There was a law that was passed of Ensuring Public Financial Management Act. I think it was in December 2016. If you look at everything that is happening around the Kelny GVG, it is in opposition to the rules of public financial management. And so there are many more lawsuits actually flying and likely actually in the works. So this is not going to end anytime soon. This is not one of those things. I think people beat off too much that they can chew. So this is not one of those things that you wish away. Even if eventually we do everything, including the likes of Maximus and Sarah Safaji, including everything we want to do, and nothing even happens because the state may be organized in order for things to happen well, I'm sure people will be punished spiritually.
But when you say the state will be organized for things to be done well, I'm curious, what does that mean?
Oh, I'm sure the law courts. You see, the judges are don't forget, a judge was the one who coined the term create, loot, and share, because he got perplexed. And I've spoken to some judges in the past who say that, look, we hear everything you guys fight about, but because of where we sit, we can't say anything. We can only speak when we give our judgment. So as much as you can, bring some of these cases to us. And I expect that many more Ghanaians. There was a gentleman who just wrote a letter, I think, to the asking for details about the road contract. And I think many more Ghanaians have to be empowered to do this. They shouldn't just sit on social media and be laughing and be painting faces. In fact, I expect more ladies to get into the activism. They should follow the lead of Sarah Safuaje, who, by the way, is a consummate real activist, and she's been supporting causes as well, like the sports. She's helps raise a lot of money for the guy who did the the Winter Olympics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then the Ghana swimming Olympics team. She's been a very organized activist of sorts, and I think we need more people to break out of the shells.
But finally, on the Kelly thing, just by way of getting your thoughts on it, the communication minister makes the point that this is a fair deal. We have 2.6 million in the past, and we're paying 1.49 million. So how isn't this value for money?
That's not how to do value for money. Indeed, if you said the two previous contracts were not good because they didn't return value, there's no basis for you to base your so-called savings on those sums. And we are saying that the way to do real cost-benefit analysis or value for money analysis is to ask yourself, if you are paying 1.5 million to some entity, what are you getting in return? Let me tell you what they are getting in return so far. Since they signed the contract in December 2017, they've managed to save us, the claim, by the way, they managed to save us in one instance $570.
$570?
Yes. If you want to extend it and say in the unlikely event they save us only $34,000, $34,200. Let me tell you how we calculated that.
Okay.
So Kenny GVG, together the Ministry of Communication, issued statement and said in April 2018 they managed to parry off 1938 calls. Assuming all these calls were international calls and at 19 cents and they will lasted a minute long, we only have saved $368. But assuming they were all international calls and lasted for 1 hour, which is unlikely, they would have saved $22,000, about $300. For getting $1.5 million every month, that's how much they save. Recently, just last week, the so-called statement came from Kenny GVG, unsigned. They said they've been able to parry off 3,000 fraudulent calls. But note, if you calculated all of those, in the unlikely event that all the calls last a minute long, you would have saved only $570. If all the calls lasted 1 hour longer, you would have saved $34,200. By the way, did you know that the telcos parry off 25,000 fraudulent calls every day on their own without announcing it to the world? 25,000 every day. So you paid somebody $1.5 million since December 2017 and has been able to save you only $34,200. That's even assuming all the calls are international calls. So we've always argued that the issue about the monitoring is not needed because it's a pricing issue. 19 cents a minute to call Ghana is the only reason why SIM box fraudsters would happen. If you're calling Ghana from the UK, it costs 200 times more to call Ghana than South Africa and Nigeria. So the issue is a price issue. And my good friend, who is NCA chairman, used to be Telco's CEO. We agreed, Goku Sechado, we all agreed that there should be no need for monitoring, in fact, including the Deputy Minister for Communication. When he was he said that there's no need for monitoring because it's a price arbitrage. It's a pricing issue. So how on earth do we then say that we are saving Ghana money by giving somebody $1.5 million for the next 10 years to return values like $570? And I'm telling you that the telcos see fraudulent calls every day. They parry off 25,000. You know why they see it? Because the same system that this so-called entity is coming to actually verify is the same thing they are going to use. Anyhow you look at it, it's a fraudulent deal.
Okay, so that will lead us to Ibrahim Tanko. And I saw you sitting there and probably asking yourself, why have you gotten ourselves into? Now, you are the programs director for STAR, Strengthening Transparency, Accountability and Responsiveness in Ghana. Do you think we're holding leadership accountable enough in order to curb these malpractices?
Not enough, in my opinion. First, because we are looking to just a few organizations like Imani, BBCDD, GI. So when something happens, they say, oh, where is Imani? Where are the CSOs? But CSOs, civil society is us. As farmers, as parents, as taxpayers, civil society is us. And so when it happens, we need to look at what we can do collectively to take action on those things. We're not doing enough in terms of the fact that there's still enough space for this media to step up to the plate. TV3 has been doing this Mission Ghana thing. It's just a small program. But look at the picture that it's painting of the actual situation in the country beyond, the bright lights of Accra and Kumasi. It's terrible. And it's terrible because corruption is taking away what could have been used to give these citizens, the kind of life that they are supposed to be guaranteed as citizens. We, the citizens, are not doing enough in the sense that we are not joining up. We are looking at issues as fundamental as corruption through partisan lenses. So depending on which party is in government, depending on the messenger, we either choose to be active or inactive. And as Franklin was saying, for a country of 26, 27 million people, we have 54 ambulances.
It was 55 until 3FA reported that one district ambulance collapsed.
Broken down. And that's the only ambulance they had.
Yeah, so it's only 54 now.
That's left.
So where are the ambulances? So we citizens, somebody's father was sent around how many hospitals last week because they couldn't get a bed and a person died. That has no partisan colors. So fighting corruption, for me, is something that we are enjoying to do as human beings. And I think it also poses quite an existential threat to us as a nation. Because it gets to a certain point where citizens begin to see that they don't see themselves in the state. And then we begin to have the kinds of troubles that we don't want to see in Ghana.
Okay, I just would want to understand the problem before we get into the solutions, Franklin. Is it a case that as a people we see nothing wrong with corruption?
Until I suspect in a way, yes, because the petty corruption, which you normally find, which is as a result of the lack of services that is being delivered, we've been living with it. So it's a bit difficult. I'll give you another analogy. I recall a friend of mine was investigating whether there was economic freedom in Somalia. And then she said she asked ordinary traders, well, do you prefer the current situation of guns flying, people attacking people, versus when there was normalcy? You know what the traders said?
No.
They said they prefer this scenario where there's chaos.
Why?
Because under chaos, no government officer will come and ask for some tax in order to protect them, which they usually don't. No government officer will come around collecting tolls to do anything. But they take care of their lives the way they want. So there's some sort of peace in disorder. That's the way they thought they should. It's the same analogy here. We don't see some of these acts as brazen because we've been processed in order to see petty corruption, and so once somebody is in a higher office, then we assume that he must he or she must be stealing more, because then it's fine. But there's also the insidious, the very nature of our high octane politics, which also drives this thinking that somebody needs to steal more to come and give to food soldiers, and then they are happy. We don't care and we don't ask. But I suspect that there's some revolution that will be happening. It's not that it's not happened before. It's happened. If you thought that stealing 50,000 Ghana cedis in the late 70s, late 70s, could get you to jail or could land you a bullet.
Firing squad, yeah.
If you calculated the cost of 150,000 Ghana cedis in today's terms, that's about $160-something thousand. Look at the sums people are siphoning off through crazy deals like a Mary, like Kearney GVG, and all kinds of things. They are talking millions. It should get people sufficiently angry enough.
Are they getting angry? It doesn't look like it.
Well, people are. Just that, you see, the proverbial Ghanaian is normally would express angst quietly and then wait until the ballot day, which is what we are saying, Tanko is saying, shouldn't happen. Because then people should be empowered enough and ordinary people should see themselves as part of civil society, to be empowered enough to say that no. But the more stories we are able to tell, including the media, to make this analogy and say that if somebody steals $1 million, it shouldn't be considered a misdemeanor. It has repercussions for your health care. You could easily die. Your mother could easily die, just like the gentleman died. And just like that, because somebody's misdemeanor, which is actually high crime, has led to the lack of services. And the more we drive these points home, the more people begin to appreciate the fact that they can't sit idle, aloof, and just follow political parties and believe that some people are just against or jealous about politicians. It's never the case.
And I think if I could just add very quickly,
yes, go ahead.
That one of the reasons why we think citizens are pathetic, it's really because there aren't any points for organizing.
Yeah.
So you go and see something wrong happening, but as an individual, you are almost like, what can I do as an individual? So I think it's beginning to organize in groups, in collectives around the NGOs and civil society organizations. Then that enables you at Market Traders Association to do something, as drivers to do something, as journalists to do something. But as individuals, it might become very hard. Robin Hood went out of fashion a long time ago.
Let's address this issue. When it comes to even civil society, the constant tagging of people, how does that affect the demand for accountability? So there you speak and, this person don't mind him, is anti-government.
Yes.
How does that affect the demand for accountability?
Well, I think, in some sense, that has largely succeeded in driving some civil society organizations to only focus on safe issues. They don't want to go into the controversial ones. But I think that so long as you have the evidence, they can tag you to no end, but eventually, people will begin to see that, there is truth in this. I mean, what didn't we hear about Imani, under the NDC government, that they were in bed with the NPP? Now suddenly the tables have turned and we're hearing that Imani is in bed with NDC to do the NPP government. So as for the tagging, it will always come because that's the stock in trade of politicians. The important thing is that you are working on the basis of evidence. Okay. And that is where we need the right to information, law.
Great. We'll get to the right information. But Franklin, talking about inflation in contracts, we saw that, Kwesi Nyetil talked about it. He said that in Ghana, a bridge in the US, is cheaper than a bridge in Ghana because they have to inflate, the price and everything of it. The excuse they give you, and I've been speaking with the PPA, the Public Procurement CEO, he says, well, they say we should pick the least evaluated responsive bidder. And so we look at that and, we realize that this is the costing. Well, sometimes we can't do anything about it and yet would have to go with. How do we deal with that situation? Because it's definitely, when it comes to procurement, an avenue for lots of corruption.
Well, first of all, the way we do our procurement in itself gives room for all sorts of questions. It's a procurement economy right now. In spite of the fact that the procurement ministry has been created, sitting in the Office of Government Machinery, which, by the way, is a house of waste and corruption. Not just because the current government is in power, but we've done a lot of work. And we've seen that the Office of Government Machinery, almost on a yearly basis, overruns its budget. Yeah. In some instances, over 200 million, 300 million cedis. So now what has happened is that if you look at Mohammed's administration, when it was leaving, 2016, they budgeted 671 million Ghana cedis. By end of 2016, we found out that they'd actually spent almost 6 billion Ghana cedis. Of course, if you add all the election-related matters, usually during elections, then you see the figures ballooning. Then what did our new friends in power do? They saw the trends and decided that to be safe, they'll balloon the budget so that they won't be accused of overruns. So they increased it to 1.5 billion in 2017. 2018, they doubled it to 3 billion. So they are in safe zones. But that is waste. In fact, it's aggravated waste. And waste is corruption. Let's not kid ourselves by trying to say that the setting up of the Ministry of Special Development Initiative is something from heaven. It is an act of corruption.
Why is it an act of corruption?
Yeah, because if you see the things the ministry is supposed to do, could have been done by building toilets, building manholes, providing boreholes, painting buildings, buying cars, buying ambulances. These are things that other ministries could do. If we slash that ministry, if that ministry did not exist, we would have saved 300 million Ghana cedis cool money.
How?
Yes, because the allocations to the ministry for administration is about 300 million Ghana cedis, and they have a 2 billion cedi budget. So if you add that to the 1 billion for the Office of Government Machinery, that's 3 billion Ghana cedis. And some people are trying to be smart by telling us that, oh, it's been budgeted, so you can't say that it is waste. We are saying it is official waste, it's grand waste, because nobody asked you to create the ministry anyway. So we are saying that fighting corruption and waste starts from the presidency, because the waste that we see there actually is annoying, quite frankly annoying. So you ask the question, why is it that inflated contracts, how can it be done? Let's look at it this way. Look, every forward moving country now, when it comes to procurement, this is what they do. They make sure it is open. In fact, there are bans. If something is beyond a certain figure, you make sure that the subcontractors are known, the contractors are known, everybody who puts in a bid is known, and that's what is done in the States. When Obama was going on and on about his infrastructure plan, if you were procuring a service beyond $20,000, you needed to list all the contractors, subcontractors, everybody, and the values, and everybody, and the evaluation teams were usually changed depending on what was being contracted. What do we do here? We buy roofing sheets, toilet bowls, and these, and then we say we are doing sole sourcing. Yeah. That's why it was really funny. It was funny when the president suggested that, well, look at me. Mama did West. I've shaved off sole sourcing, and my contracts are cleaner, and I've saved 50%. 50% of what?
Well, it's the whole
yes, but the whole enterprise of sole sourcing should not be done, not because it's in the law. Look, when people say that something is in the law, so we should do it, it really irks me a lot. Because there was a time when the French citizens decided to go to French Parliament to pass a law against the sun from burning candles. Is that a good law? It's called legal plunder. So the fact that you have a procurement system that allows sole sourcing in itself, and we are sourcing things that are not from Mars or Pluto, but we are sourcing things that can easily be found, in itself is a travesty when it comes to the issue of procurement. And I'm saying that let's do proper procurement. Let's allow the tender evaluation boards that should be that usually should be set out to be made out of technical people. They can evaluate. Look, we've asked for the tender papers of Kenny GVG. Yeah. It's as if they are telling us, we have it, we won't give it away, we won't give it to you. You can do anything you want. In an organized state, in the 21st century, that the ministry has gone to procure services of a non-existent entity.
Oh, it's existent, isn't it?
Have you seen them before?
Kelny GVG.
Have you seen anybody? When you guys did that cartoon, where you showed me and the minister, didn't you see what you did? Where is the cartoonist, by the way? I need to give him money for cocoa this morning. you know what he did?
The cartoonist is like an ass. We are hiding him.
Yeah, you hid. Oh no. The Kenny was, his back was obviously you couldn't see the face.
Yes,
that was a beautiful art. I don't know if people realized it, but you could see the telcos on one side and me. Of course, it doesn't mean that the telcos have paid me. In fact, if the telcos paid me money, I'll collect it.
Oh, you collect it?
To do this work. Well, listen, if you are doing good work and somebody gives you $1 million to chase down people who are likely to steal 178 million, you think it's not God-given, you collect it. Not that they've given me any money anyway, but if they bring it, I'll collect it. Yes. By the way, you showed telcos and me, you could see my face, but you even darkened the minister's face and darkened Kenny GVG. That was a beautiful art. But I'm trying to say something. Look, when have you seen the movie War Dogs? I don't know if I mentioned it on your program here sometime. War Dogs.
Yeah.
Yes, in that movie, 2 young guys, one Jew and the other from, of course, they were Americans. 2 young guys. There was a bid to procure arms for Iraq. This happened, by the way. It was a true story. Procure arms from any part of the world for Iraq. Then these 2 young guys put in a bid for a $300 million project, and they won. It was transparent. It was on the internet. They read it, did everything. All big-time military corporations also put in bids, but they lost. They got the best value. But you know what happened at the end?
Tell me.
They found out that the guys procured fake Chinese bullets. So the same system managed to fish them out and got them punished as well. That's what is done in every civilized entity. You don't go and do procurement to paint buses under bus branding and then tell me that it's a national security threat. So you should paint buses.
So if
you don't go and do procurement, hide the procurement and tell me that you did restricted tendering for something that could affect you and our lives. These guys are coming to spy on us. For crying out loud. And you think that you can give them 178 million free money and then do that. I think that the National Communications Authority should actually be ashamed to be allow itself to be toyed with in this manner. And who said the telcos actually care? They don't care. You know why?
No.
Because it's a 6% communication service tax that is paid anyway. But the sadness is that you and I should be saying to the ministry and the GRA and NCA that it is wrong to pay $178 million to protect $74 million, which is what we get from communication service tax. Anybody who tells you that they want to make a deal and that the deal is good value for money is a liar. You know why? Because if you can't tell the person the incremental value it's bringing on board, why and paying that amount, it's a lie. When Cosmos and Talo were coming to drill oil in Ghana, did we ask them to give $100 million, whether they found oil or not?
No.
They brought their own money.
Yes.
And when they found oil, we use our laws to say this is how much is due us. Why should they give us money when they've not found oil? Why are you paying Kearney GVG $1.5 million since January 2018 every month, having delivered nothing? And when they now came claiming they delivered something, it's $570.
Well, so, but in the midst of all of these things, Franklin Cudjoe, then shouldn't we be, since as a people we like to take advantage of laws, whatever you say, we say, well, I've done nothing wrong when it comes to the law, we should be changing laws to make sure that some of these things are no longer in our books then.
We really have to, because the core monitoring law, for instance, is one of the most absurd I've found in the law. And the ministers are hiding with that law and defying common sense and saying that the law empowers us. But even technically, what we are saying is that the law doesn't say you should go beyond the billing notes. So these guys say they connect, they'll go beyond the billing note. That's why in Kenya, the judges said, no way, we should not allow these people to connect, because when they do it, it will be counterfeiting our cause. It will be a counterfeit process. Just check Reuters, April 19, 2018, I think, this year. The High Court in Kenya banned monitoring. They called it fake monitoring, right? In Tanzania, all the places the ministry has been citing as defense, nothing has happened there. In fact, in Rwanda, the government is being accused of using GVG machines to spy on Ugandan president, right? And Ugandan Prime Finance Minister, contrary to what the ministry says, Uganda it's happening, actually was on BBC saying that they believe the telco, so they are not doing any monitoring. You can't lie your way through policy as well.
Exactly. So, Ibrahim Tanko, what do we do now? Starting off as citizens. Yes, we've talked about the problems, we've talked about how the laws are not helping us, but as citizens, what do we need to do to ensure that we're able to curb corruption in our public institutions as well as fight it?
Yes. I think I said previously, there's no magic bullet. We're people in search of a magic bullet. When Martin Amidu was appointed, everybody went, hey, the Messiah has arrived. But Martin Amidu by himself is nothing. You know, you need a judicial system that works. You need a police, prosecutors, you need evidence, etc. The media by itself can't do much because you need people to tell you, you need civil society that would, take up. So I think first it requires that we are corruption aware, so to speak. That in our daily interactions with the state, with service providers, etc., we are looking out where are the opportunities, where are the areas. The second is that being willing to step out of our comfort zones, to either report, to join others, to ensure that things happen. So there's a road in your community. Was it a few weeks ago? I think it was City FM that was reading out a letter that a citizen had written, demanding information on a road that had been constructed in their community. Exactly. That didn't last even 6 months, and that letter went viral. and it is beginning to make people sit on there. So there are small things that we can do, but also to begin to support actions by various, institutions and etc. We can petition our MPs. People say it's not this. There's a whistle.
Will they do anything?
Well, if sufficient, what politicians fear, are not just delegates and foot soldiers, but also voters.
Yeah, of course.
And if there's sufficient public mobilization around a specific issue, they are forced to react. So I think it's a collection of all the small fires that we are lighting around that would actually add up to something that affects the system. We need institutions that work. We need a parliament that is willing to step beyond the partisan boundaries, and begin to say, look, what is happening in this? Where's the value for money in this? What can we do about this? We need a media that will constantly, beyond the 24-hour news cycle, take an issue and follow it to the end. We need CSOs, that will be able to uncover the evidence and make noise about it, so to speak.
Okay, the CSOs are doing that. The media is trying, but Parliament, Franklin, the talk of needing a Parliament that will be, non-partisan when it comes to issues concerning value for money. Well, ever since I started, following Ghana's Parliament, I haven't seen anything like that. In many of the instances, yes, once a while they probably would say, "Oh, let's look at it," but when it comes to the critical moment where a decision has to be taken, they are whipped in line.
Yeah.
Which is sad. You see a few brave hearts who usually, and then they are sidelined. People like Katie Hammond. Yeah. He doesn't even, I don't think he even lives in Ghana these days. I've not heard of him. People like PCRP Afori and the rest did all sort of things. So the head mentality thing is real, it's true. Even if this Kennedy GVG that went to Parliament, was interesting it went to Parliament. You could see the divisions clearly, the minority saying no, and the majority. But I must say though, that the majority, not all of them, by the way, are in harmony with this deal. But if you looked at the fact that none of them actually came to the defense of the ministry for a very long time, no big person in party, in government spoke volumes. But the point you are making generally is that until the matter, if the matter involves value for money, you really don't see it dies slowly and all kinds of things. It's probably true. By the way, maybe the vice president is the champion that we need to look out for, because he's initiating these issues around value for money. I've seen a letter inviting myself, Imani, to a meeting in, I think, June 25th or so thereabout, to discuss value for money in projects like hospitals, schools, and all of that. So we should be commending such efforts. But while these meetings are being done, we should be able to look back at his own government and say, listen, we accused the Mahama administration of overspending, and we did say most of them. We shouldn't just leave it to having meetings about value for money. We should actually leave it as well.
Okay.
And so for me, I think what Sanko has said is everybody getting involved. If a gentleman can take a pen and write a letter, say, this road was awarded. First of all, let me have the documents related to all this contract. It's a first step to go. And I suspect many more people will catch on. I think we shouldn't lose hope at all. Okay. If two Ghanaians can take Kennedy GVG to court, maybe we should start seeing more such actions.
Maybe we should start seeing more of such actions. We need to be wrapping up. But just final question, because when you talked about the telcos giving money, someone just sends a message and says, so is he doing this because he's expecting something from them?
In fact, let me be very blunt. I'm saying that if the unlikely event that they actually give it, I will accept it with both hands and legs. You know why? Because it is an act of doing good. It's like when somebody sees you doing something well and then they push you. But I'm saying that because I've been accused, by the way, of actually taking it. And I'm saying that I'd rather err on the side of somebody who is ready to protect my privacy, protect our millions, rather than be on the side of the person who is really going. So that's a typical Ghanaian question. Is he expecting the money anyway? If I get it, I'll give him something.
Okay, finally, Tanko, just by way of wrapping up, would the right to information help? We've been talking about it for God knows how long.
Well, it will help. I mean, we've seen a few criticisms of ANAS, and we're saying that if we had an effective Right to Information Act, perhaps ANA's methods will not be that necessary or that relevant. But we're saying that it's not a silver bullet, but it would be one of the arrows that we'll have in our arsenal to help fight corruption.
Okay. I know you're partners in the ANAS investigation and all that. So after the video showing what next, what happens?
Well, we are supporting in terms of ensuring that as many Ghanaians as possible are able to watch. We didn't fund the investigations, but we're funding the screening. And after that, well, we're seeing, I mean, if there are any next steps that we can support, we'll definitely be willing to support.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim Tanko, who's Programs Director of Star Ghana. And thank you also, Franklin Cudjoe, who's Imani Africa President, for joining us this morning. We are very grateful to all of you. We are very grateful to all of you. We are very grateful to all of you.